My name is Heather, and I am 31 years old. The family reunion was supposed to be one of those picture-perfect afternoons people brag about on social media. White tables under old oak trees, laughter floating through the air, plates overloaded with food, and forced smiles stretched just enough to look real. For my family, these gatherings were never about love. They were about performance. Who earned the most, who married the best, who brought news that could be applauded. I arrived alone, as usual, already feeling like a shadow among people who shared my blood, but not my respect. Dad stood at the center of it all, loud, confident, holding court like a king who believed the world revolved around his approval. I tried to stay invisible, helping my aunt with plates, nodding politely when spoken to, keeping my head down. I had learned long ago that silence was safer. Dinner was announced, and we gathered around the long table. Dad tapped his glass with a fork, that sharp sound slicing through conversations. Everyone quieted instantly. He loved moments like this, an audience, a spotlight, power. He raised his glass and said, "At the family dinner," Dad said, "I'm proud of all my children, except the loser sitting at the table." The words hit the air like a slap. For a split second, there was silence. Then everyone laughed. Not awkward chuckles, real laughter. Some looked at their plates, some looked straight at me, and some laughed the hardest because they knew it wasn't them. My chest tightened, but my face stayed calm. I'd been called worse in private. This was just the first time he did it publicly. I could feel the heat rising in my face, the familiar mix of shame and anger. Memories flashed, report cards he tore up, jobs he called cute, dreams he said were delusions. No matter what I did, I was always the disappointment. My brothers were successful, my sister was admired, and I was the cautionary tale Dad liked to tell about what happens when you don't follow his rules. He smiled, pleased with himself, soaking in the laughter. I noticed my mother didn't say a word. She never did. As the laughter faded, Dad continued talking about success, discipline, and real achievements. His eyes slid past me like I didn't exist. I felt something shift inside me. Not rage, not sadness, but clarity. I realized this moment was exactly like every other one, just louder. He wanted me small. He wanted me silent. He wanted me to disappear. And for years, I let him believe he'd succeeded. I reached into my bag under the table, my fingers brushing against the envelope I'd brought with me. It was thick, heavy, impossible to ignore. I hadn't planned on doing anything dramatic today. I brought it as a reminder to myself, not for him. But as Dad talked, as my relatives nodded along, something told me this was the moment I'd been preparing for without realizing it. I stood up slowly, the chair scraping against the ground. Conversation stopped. Forks paused midair. Everyone turned toward me, surprised I'd even make a sound. My voice didn't shake. That shocked me the most. I placed the envelope on the table in front of Dad, right next to his plate. "For you, Dad, happy Father's Day," I said. No anger, no sarcasm, just facts. Then I looked around the table, at faces that had laughed seconds earlier, and I felt oddly calm. I didn't wait for a response. I didn't explain. I turned and walked away. Behind me, I could hear whispers starting, chairs shifting, confusion rippling through the group. I didn't see his reaction then. I didn't need to. As I stepped away from the table, away from the years of insults and labels, I felt lighter than I had in a long time. I walked past the house where I grew up, the same house where I learned early that love came with conditions. Outside, the air felt different, cooler, freer. I sat in my car for a moment, hands on the steering wheel, heart pounding, wondering if I'd finally gone too far or if I'd finally done enough. Later, I would hear what happened next, how he opened it, and couldn't stop screaming for 10 minutes straight. But at that moment, driving away from the reunion, I wasn't thinking about his screams or his pride. I was thinking about the girl I used to be, the one who believed she really was a loser because her own father said so, and I promised myself something as I left that place behind. No matter what happened after that envelope was opened, I would never sit quietly at that table again. I didn't go far. I parked a few streets away and sat there longer than I expected, replaying everything in my head. The laughter, Dad's voice, the way the word loser landed like it belonged to me. My phone buzzed nonstop, but I didn't check it. Part of me already knew what was happening back there. About 20 minutes later, my cousin texted just one sentence. He opened it. That was all, no emojis. No explanation. Just those 3 words, heavy with meaning. I stared at the screen, then turned the engine off and waited. According to everyone who witnessed it, Dad picked up the envelope with a smug smile. He assumed it was cash or a card, something small I'd scraped together to save face. He even joked, "At least she remembered Father's Day." And people laughed again. Then he opened it. The color drained from his face so fast my aunt thought he was about to faint. The room went silent as he pulled out the documents inside. Official papers, stamped, signed, impossible to deny. His hands started shaking. Someone asked if he was okay. That's when it happened. He screamed, not once, not twice. He couldn't stop screaming for 10 minutes straight. The papers were proof, clear, brutal proof, that everything he believed about me was wrong. They showed that the loser sitting at the table was the only one who had paid off the family house years ago, quietly, anonymously, after he nearly lost it to debt. They showed that I owned the company he bragged about investing in, the one he told everyone my brother worked for. They showed that the trust fund he mocked me for never having was actually created by my late grandfather for me, because Grandpa saw what Dad refused to see. Worst of all for him, there was a letter from Grandpa attached, explaining exactly why. Line by line, it described Dad's cruelty, his favoritism, and his need to break one child to feel powerful. Dad tried to speak, but all that came out were screams, rage, fear, humiliation tangled together. My relatives stood frozen. No one laughed this time. No one defended him. My mother cried. My siblings stared at the floor. The man who built his identity on pride had it ripped away in front of everyone. When he finally stopped screaming, his voice was hoarse, barely recognizable. He demanded to know where I was. That's when my cousin said, "She already left." I didn't go back that night. I didn't answer his calls or texts. For the first time in my life, I didn't rush to explain myself. Didn't try to soften the truth so it wouldn't hurt him. The truth was supposed to hurt. That envelope wasn't revenge, it was reality. For years, I carried the weight of his judgment while building a life he never bothered to look at. I let him believe his version of me, because correcting him would be meant fighting every day. I chose peace over recognition. Until that dinner. A week later, he showed up at my door. Not angry. Not loud, small. He didn't apologize. Not really. He said he was shocked, that he never knew, that he might have been too hard. I listened, arms crossed, feeling nothing. I realized something important in that moment. I didn't need his pride anymore. When he finally asked why I did it, why I embarrassed him like that, I told him the truth. "You embarrassed yourself. I just stopped protecting you." He left without another word. Life didn't magically become perfect after that, but it became honest. Family gatherings changed. People spoke to me differently, carefully, respectfully. Some apologized. Some stayed silent. Dad stopped making speeches. And me? I stopped shrinking. I understood that being called a loser by someone broken doesn't make you one. It just means they're afraid of what you might become if you ever believe in yourself. If this story hit you, if you've ever been laughed at, dismissed, or labeled by the very people who were supposed to love you, remember this. Silence isn't weakness, and patience isn't failure. Sometimes the strongest moment of your life is when you finally stand up. Place the truth on the table and walk away. If you want more real, powerful stories like this, stories about quiet strength, long patience, and unforgettable turning points, make sure you subscribe to the channel now, because the next story might feel like it was written straight from your own life.